Hello everyone and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today I want to tell you about a hobby which many of us had before the internet came. Yes, it's true, the internet gives us mass capabilities to talk to people around the world, but what did we do before the internet? Well, I'm old enough to remember that, so let's talk about it. One of the things that we did was we listened to international radio. You see, before the internet came, the the foreign departments of each government had ways to communicate with the expatriates of a particular country who lived abroad. Let me use the BBC as an example. So, the BBC was, as you know, the government's mouthpiece. So, it used the BBC World Service to talk to British people around the world. That's why the BBC World Service was set up. It wasn't just because it was a nice new radio station. Its purpose was to give news and information about Britain and to anybody else who was listening. It broadcast on Shortwave. Shortwave is still around. Now, I know that if you look at your radio, you'll probably see AM, FM, LW, which is basically different types of frequencies. But on older radios, and you can still get them today, you'll see another way, which is called SW for shortwave. Shortwave radio was very popular, and most countries had a shortwave service. We're going to listen to some of the logos and idents and brands in the form of sound clips so you can hear what some of them sounded like. Most of them have moved away from shortwave now and are basically on the internet. Some of them are still looked after by their respective foreign office governments, but many of them have just become, other radio stations. So they're not quite as flashy and perfect and shiny as they were when they had a lot of power. These radio stations usually had a number of different programs about culture and about different things which were happening around the world. But they always had at least one program dedicated about radio itself and how you could listen to different stations. And usually on a Sunday, these radio stations also broadcast greetings programs and put listeners in touch with each other. You could write to the radio station and you could ask for your name and address to be read, I was going to say online there, but to be read aloud so that everyone around the world can hear it, and then they can write to you so that you could create pen pals. I know that by today's standards, of course, it seems terribly out of date, but at the time it really wasn't. It was fun. And I met many wonderful people by doing that at different points in my life, some of whom I'm still in touch with today. So, whatever you're listening today, I wonder what radio station your government broadcasts to other countries. You might not know about it. The reason why you might not know about it is because these programs never reached internal audiences. They were never broadcast locally. They were broadcast to other countries. So, for example, the BBC World Service, I think, broadcast something like 2 or 3 hours of English every day, and it also broadcasts 2 or 3 hours in French, 2 or 3 hours in Italian, 2 or 3 hours in other languages. It wasn't always in English, so it wasn't really suitable. It was a way of telling everyone around the world, hey, we're Britain. It really was a wonderful thing, and I think you should definitely have a look at your own local government and find out what the radio station was. And then you can still find it online. So let's listen to a few clips, and these are just a few short idents, as we call them, identity sounds, which represent the brand, the type of radio station that was trying to reach other countries. They broadcast in shortwave, so shortwave was obviously the best frequencies, the best band, I should say, to broadcast long distance. But it wasn't easy. Sometimes the reception was good, sometimes the reception was bad, but people like me, we loved writing to radio stations. And when we wrote to them, we got a letter back, and wow, a letter from another country. That was a big thing in those days. All right, let's listen. The first one here is Radio Sofia from Bulgaria. They were trying to broadcast to Africa in this clip. The clip sounds really old, but actually it's not. It's only from the 1980s. Not so far back for some people. Anyway, let's have a listen to the theme tune and identity as Radio Bulgaria signs on in English.
Radio Sofia broadcasts in English to Africa every evening at 19:05 hours Greenwich Mean Time in the 16 and 25 meter bands, and at 21:05 hours Greenwich Mean Time in the 16, 25 and 31 meter bands.
Good evening, everyone. First, now the news. The announcement of the Bulgarian news agency of February the 15th.
So a bit of a dodgy English accent there, wasn't altogether clear even for me. Even with good reception, some of the accents in English around the world were highly questionable. It wasn't always easy to find native English speakers in your country at that time. Let's try another one. The next one is from Radio Sweden International, while they're opening their English service.
Radio Sweden, Stockholm. Ni lyssnar till Radio Sweden, Stockholm.
So you can hear there that that was Radio Sweden in Stockholm, again with a very strong Swedish accent. Of course, these stations were very political, because back in the 70s and 80s, there were political problems in the world, and radio was used to broadcast propaganda. The next one is going to be China Radio International. This had a particularly nice jingle, and what's strange about this radio station is that it's still around, still going strong, with a huge English output. I think it's now 24 hours a day in English, and it's part of other broadcasting networks as well. So it's very good, but let's listen to what it was like back in the 1980s. I don't think it's on shortwave anymore though, but this is what it sounded like when it was still on shortwave.
中国国际广播电台
Chińskie Radio Międzynarodowe. Mówi Pekin.
Right, the next one is Deutsche Welle. Now, you probably know Deutsche Welle as being a really nice international TV podcast or radio podcast with English news. Well, before that, it was really on shortwave. So here's how it sounded before it transitioned and moved into modern technology. And that's how it was. They just kept repeating this kind of like theme tune with a few bars of music. But then all radio stations did that on shortwave. It was like while you were waiting. You know, like if you have a look on Facebook and you're waiting for a live stream, you just have to wait until someone begins. Well, it was kind of like that. Kind of like hold music. And if you were lucky, they would say in between those jingles, Deutsche Welle, in different languages. Yeah. The list goes on. In the Netherlands, they had bells, which chimed. I'll let you hear those.
English Happy Station show for Sunday the 16th of April. Attention, continuity programme de Happy Station en anglais pour dimanche le 16 avril. Merci.
And that's how it was. You had presenters that could speak 3 or 4 languages, and they were always pushed out to present these programs. Sorry about the volume on that one. I think it was a little bit low towards the end there. Okay, so we'll do one more, which is Italy. And I want you to find out all about your international shortwave radio station. It might still be around on the internet. It may still even be on shortwave. Many of them are, such as, I think it was Radio Moscow became Sputnik Radio, and I think it's still around somewhere on the internet. Of course, you have America with Voice of America, and they do special broadcasts. Shortwave isn't dead. Wonderful hobby if you want to get back into it. Let's have a listen to RAI, R-A-I in Italy before we close. This interval clip is from the 1980s. I remember they used to broadcast in English and French for 20 minutes a day. I'm not sure if they did other languages, but that's what I remember. Disturbing, isn't it? Just a bird chirping again and again and again.
televisione italiana. Qui Rai International, che trasmette quotidianamente per l'Australia su kHz 11.920, pari a metri.
Oh, and of course they broadcast in Italian as well. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed these clips around the world. Do have a look and see what shortwave radio your country, I should say, what shortwave radio frequencies your country broadcasts on, and find out if they're still around. It would be a really interesting project. Whether you're in Latvia or whether you're in Australia, oh yes, you all had radio stations broadcasting in English to other countries, as well as your own language. Some of the presenters were just a little bit strange. Well, it was the 80s after all, but now we have many more people speaking international languages. And I'm sure at some point in the future, way beyond my time, I think we'll all be speaking one language. What that is? Well, you all can fight that out between yourselves, because I think I'll be long gone by the time that happens. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.